Senator, thank you for coming on. First off, what is your reaction to what we just heard from President Trump?
Well, it's obviously unclear where his head is at right now. I think he was, pretty indecisive on the subject of Iran, which I can understand. This is a difficult call, but I don't think we got much guidance as to whether he is optimistic about talks with Iran, leaning in towards a potential strike on Iran. It was pretty nebulous, the kind of usual stream of consciousness. A bit Iran, a bit Jerome Powell, a bit about a flagpole, and a lot of other things.
Hey, Senator, it's Wolf Blitzer here in the Situation Room as well. Does the president, from your perspective, have the legal authority, to go ahead and strike Iran's nuclear facilities without formal congressional approval?
No, I don't think he does. And I think Congress should insist on having a vote on this prior to a decision to engage in hostilities in that manner. Whether we will or not is very much an open question. We have, over the last 10 or 20 years, really ceded our authority to declare war or to refuse to declare war under the Constitution. So whether this Congress will say a word about it remains to be seen. But I do think congressional approval is both desirable and, from a constitutional point of view, necessary.
Majority Leader Thune, though, has said that, that is putting the cart before the horse, essentially. What do you say to him?
Well, we really don't know whether it's putting the cart before the horse, because we could find out in an hour, in a day, in 2 days. Who knows that the president has ordered a strike. We may not even hear about it until those planes are on their way or they've already dropped their first load of bombs. So is it premature? Who can say? But I think for Congress, if they're contemplating this, if the president makes the decision to go forward with this, then he should come to Congress and say he wants our authorization. If he wants to maintain some element of surprise, he should come and get that authorization, saying that he is contemplating the possible use of it and wants to make sure that Congress and the American people are bought in on this decision. And given the potential for escalation, we need to be bought in on this decision.
You've said that you support Israel's right to defend itself against, quote, any imminent threat, including ones from Iran. You've said that Iran must never be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon. So what role should the U.S. have in this conflict between Israel and Iran at this point?
Well, I think Israel made a decision that was in its national security interest, and I support that decision. October 7th, I think, changed a lot of Israel's calculus, given that it was the victim of this horrendous surprise attack by Hamas. It can't afford to allow Iran to get the bomb and have a surprise attack by a nuclear-armed Iran. So I support Israel's actions, and I support whatever intelligence support and defensive support we can provide Israel. But I think in terms of engaging in active hostilities ourselves, and I would think bombing Fordo would certainly qualify as our engaging in hostilities, that requires congressional approval. And I would certainly want a briefing from the administration. I would want to know what intelligence the administration has, what Israel has. I've only received the most preliminary of briefings on the subject before I could ever make a decision to approve the use of force like this, with the risk to tens of thousands of American troops in the region and the risk of getting engaged in another protracted conflict in the region.
Most of your Republican colleagues in the Senate, Senator, are standing with Trump when it comes to Iran. One of those is Senator Ted Cruz. I want you to listen to this exchange he had earlier with Tucker Carlson. Listen to this.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
What's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
What percent?
predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not
okay.
even. You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
Senator, what do you make of that exchange?
Well, look, I'm not a fan of Tucker Carlson, and I don't, frankly, rely on his advice, whether it is about Iran, Russia, or anything else. But I do think that it would be dangerous for the Congress to once again cede this decision to Donald Trump or, frankly, any president. This is something that Congress should weigh in on if the president is contemplating engaging the country in another war. I don't know where Ted Cruz's position is on that, but other Republicans who have essentially said they're comfortable, and I've heard some of them say this publicly, leaving this all to Donald Trump. Well, that is certainly not where I am. I support Israel's right to defend itself. I understand what Israel is doing, and I wish them Godspeed in protecting their country from this malign actor that is Iran. And my thoughts and prayers go out to the people of Israel that are at risk right now. But in terms of drawing the United States into a full-blown war with Iran, that is not something I am willing to cede to this president or any president.
All right, Senator Adam Schiff of California, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.
Thank you very much. And we're also following